Welcome back to the FTN Fantasy Team Preview Series. I'm your host, Mike Randle. Follow me on X at Randle Rant. And today we're going to Indianapolis to talk about the Colts with the great Kevin Bowen. Follow him on X at KBowen1070. He's the radio host for Wake Up Call 1075 and has been covering the Colts since 2011. Perfect person to talk about. Kevin, thank you for joining us. Let's start with Anthony Richardson. He's big. He's strong. I think he's healthy, unless you tell me otherwise. Give me a health update on Anthony Richardson and tell me if I'm crazy. I think he's going to have a monster season.
Yeah, certainly the explosive nature, I think, is what everyone is banking on. I think when healthy, he can and should provide that. I thought you saw glimpses of it last year, and even then, I didn't think he really uncorked the deep ball to the magnitude that I think he can. Yep. Health-wise is the elephant in the room. I think what was disappointing about the spring is he was really healthy until the end, and the right shoulder soreness kind of popped up. And, Mike, that's the injury I've kind of not worried about. My injury question for him is more of, durability, taking hits, consistently week in and week out for a 17-game season, not just the shoulder soreness. And, obviously he's not getting hit right now. So I think that is the one that, I wish I could have stronger conviction to silence that, but I just can't. And then, given the playing style, you obviously do worry about that over 17 weeks. But again, when healthy, certainly this is a guy that, can bring some home run ability to a position that you obviously covet that.
Definitely. And let's go to the backfield now with Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, the offseason stuff last year, back and forth the contract, but one of the best running backs in the NFL, looks healthy, looks ready to go. Obviously, sort of guides this offense here because if they can run it, they can do anything. Question about him, how's he going to do? And then also, it does look like it's Trey Sermon as the number 2. Am I wrong? So if something happens here, could Trey Sermon step in? Is he going to be worked in even if Taylor is healthy? Talk about the backfield here for the Colts.
Yeah, I don't think you pay Taylor that money and not treat him like pretty much the bell cow, I would say, of any bell cow in the entire NFL. Obviously, last year he missed all that time in the offseason, the contract drama. But, just go back to the season finale if you want a reminder of what Taylor can do. I mean, he was terrific in the win and get-in game against the Texans. Obviously, C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins ultimately stole the show. But Taylor, I thought one of his finest performances as a pro. So, you fast forward to this offseason, totally healthy. I think the Richardson-Taylor duo win, obviously healthy. I think they are easily one of, if not the top, quarterback running back duo in the league. And remember, him and Richardson played 2 snaps together last season. That was it. So, I always point fans back to a play in week 5 or 6. It was against Tennessee. Zach Moss right at the middle for about a 50, 60-yard touchdown. That's a play with Anthony Richardson attracting all this attention from Tennessee. Yep. Zach Moss is not a home run hitter. But all these eyes and everyone's looking towards Richardson in a short yardage moment. Boom, he sticks it in the belly of Moss. He gets to the second level and no one's left for him. Imagine 4-3, whatever, 40-yard dash time for Taylor. I mean, he's hit home runs with far less quarterback dynamic nature next to him. So, very bullish on Jonathan Taylor. Certainly think he's going to be the bell cow. Backup-wise, I assume it would be Sermon if he were to miss time. They've got a couple more receiving guys, and Evan Hall, 5th-round pick out of Northwestern, who got hurt in week 1 last year. Tyler Goodson, who had that rather infamous, drop on 4th and 1 that really cost them that Houston game last year. So those are maybe some other receiving type guys. But again, you don't sign Taylor to the extension that you do if you're going to give him, 12 carries a game.
Kevin, my thoughts on the wide receivers changed as the last month or so has played out. I loved Michael Pittman. He was fantastic. Definitely saw an increase when Gardner Minshew went under center, signed a contract, looked like the wide receiver 1. However, I'm starting to realize that maybe there's some other receivers that are going to get a little bit more of the target share, specifically Josh Downs, super explosive. So sort out the receivers here. Jelani Woods, of course, in the mix as well. Talk about their role this year with Richardson under center. They only had 4 games last year, barely 4 games. Talk about how you see that going this year for Indianapolis.
Yeah, Pittman and Downs in different ways because they're such different body types. I think they are kind of your single and double hitters. They need to go, 3 for 4 to really feel their presence. But, if you look at a box score after the end of the game, you're like, oh, yeah, 7 for 78, or whatever, 6 for 80, something like that. That's what Downs and Pittman, I expect them to hover around those numbers kind of week in and week out. The bigger play potential probably falls on A.D. Mitchell's shoulders as a rookie. He really flashed this spring. I thought there was some consistent playmaking there that caught my eye. And you hear people talk about him, and and I'm talking Colts people. You don't hear the typical rookie stuff, and they don't want to pump the brakes on him either. I mean, they are. He's given us a dimension we don't have in this room. And Anthony Richardson's been very high on him. So when the quarterback's very high on him, You obviously like that if you're AD Mitchell. The Alec Pierce conversation is very polarizing. I mean, it is a wild snap count to catch ratio from last season. I believe he played the most snaps of any wideout in the NFL, which I think will shock people. And then you see the catch total, and it's just minuscule. Now, again, I think he was hamstrung and has been in his first 2 seasons of the NFL of Matt Ryan and Gardner Minshew. I mean, that doesn't accentuate Alec Pierce's strengths. He's a down-the-field home run type of guy. That's what Richardson is known for. So, theoretically, that should help his advantage. Tight end playing time is wide open. I'd throw a dart at a board. People are going to ask me weekly fantasy questions each week. I can already tell that I'm going to be like, pick a different tight end on a different team because, 1 week it might be Jelani Woods. The next week it might be Kylan Granson. I thought Will Mallory, their 5th-round pick, had a flash or two. Mo Alley Cox is the most accomplished, and there's been moments I thought Drew Ogletree could, grow into a little bit of a bigger role. So I wouldn't like the tight end play in Indy. Obviously, Shane Steichen likes the position, but still just way too much of a, week in, week out. And even in the spring, we just saw tons of rotation there.
Kevin, follow up. If you had to guess right now, 2 wide receiver sets, Pittman and Mitchell or Pittman and Downs?
Yeah, I mean, certainly Pittman and Mitchell, I think outside, but, Downs as a slot is going to be peppered a whole lot. I mean, the last 2 years, it's been Pittman and Pierce 90-some% of the snaps. Right. And I just don't think it's going to be that outside. I think AD Mitchell is really going to push Pierce.
Great. Last question, sir. This has been great. Then we'll get you out of here. Talk about the defense and this schedule, because this is a fantastic schedule. One of the easiest per Vegas opposing win totals, specifically at the end of the year, weeks 13 to 17, FTN Fantasy. I did a look at it. There is no team with an easier finishing schedule than the Colts. They have 4 teams that have projected 6.5 wins or lower win totals. And then they have a bye in week 14, which I know is late. So there's good and bad to that as well. They have 3 road games, but they're ending to that run there, 13 to 17, Denver, Tennessee, and the Giants. So talk about defensive upgrades and sort of maybe some optimism with the way the schedule played out here.
Yeah, when you started asking me the question, my first thought was come playoff time, they're going to see really a joke of a list of quarterbacks is too harsh, but certainly not the quarterback list they're going to see in September and October. If you look at their schedule, it is incredibly front-loaded quarterback-wise. I bet if you were going to rank the 17 quarterbacks on their schedule, I bet they'd play the first 10 or 11 in the first 2.5 months of the season. So, post-Thanksgiving, that would be a time, I think, to jump on the Colts. I would argue they have the most continuity of any defense in the league from last season. Gus Bradley's back for a 3rd year. At times, a really solid unit, but I thought the consistent pressure was lacking a little bit in critical moments. You would like, considering the amount. I think they played 10 rookie or backup quarterbacks last year. I think that was the final total. You'd have liked to have maybe seen a little bit more playmaking, considering all the youth at quarterback that they faced and all the inexperience. So, again, early in the year, you might not see a ton of return on it, but certainly late season, inclement weather games as well. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say they're like Denver, Foxborough, and maybe MetLife all in December. So, that could play into your favor as well defensively.
Yeah, great point as always. Folks, Colts information. Only person to go to, Kevin Bowen on X at KBowen1070, radio host, Wake Up Call 1075. Has a wealth of information covering the Colts for over a decade. Kevin, thank you so much, man. We'll check back in with you. We are excited. NFL season starts with the draft. Memorial Day kicks up. When we get to July 4th, it's almost out of control. So we appreciate a few minutes here checking in on the Colts, who are going to be a big, big team, not only NFL, but the fantasy world this year.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me.